and I are joined this year by Matt Hall, and you know he's what we call Dark Shadows royalty. He was the scion of Sam Hall, who wrote the screenplay for House of Dark Shadows, which was filmed here, and his mother, Grayson Hall, starred in it. And I'm thrilled that he brought his sons, Jeb and Caleb, so they can see what this is all about and be very proud of their grandparents. So I'm really thrilled you could join us, Matt. Thank you so much. And then we have Donna McKechnie. And Donna is stage royalty. There's no question about it. She originated the role of Cassie in Chorus Line, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. And she's going to be celebrating that next week. So all of us might be, did this come off? No, it's not. We're all going to be telling you what we're up to. So this is just a very brief introduction. Marie Wallace, who celebrated her 90th. Marie celebrated her 90th birthday. She's as beautiful as ever.
Yeah.
She's so amazing. And we have our amazing Sharon, Sharon Smyth, who has joined me in the silver hair crowd. You look beautiful. You really do. All right. Just a few things here. We are going to be celebrating our 60th anniversary next year, and we've got Jim Pearson here. Thank God he's in charge of that. So in a minute we'll have Jim come up and tell us about that. And also to celebrate our 60th anniversary, I'm working with John Logan on a book called Dark Shadows Legacy, and that'll be out next spring. 60 years next year. You've heard me talk quite a lot, so I'm just going to focus on speak up? Okay. I'm just going to tell you my news. I got married. I got married on June 21st, and my husband is right over there, Patrick Oster. He fails to smile for photographs, but so I just want to tell you that in advance. But he claims to be very happy for 3 weeks later, so I think we're doing okay. So I'm going to pass this microphone to Matt Hall. I want him to talk a little bit about what your memories are as a kid growing up with Sam and Grayson.
Hello.
Tested.
I'm so sorry. I think I screwed up the other. I think we both put our thumb on the. Okay. You know what? I promise I'll speak into it as well.
Don't touch that.
Don't touch that.
Don't touch them. Don't cut the red wire. Hi, I'm Matt Hall. And my sons are over there, which would make them genetically equidistant from Sam and Grayson, who were my parents. And I don't know what y'all know, so I'm just going to blurt out stuff that you probably already know. I grew up in New York City with my parents, as one does, and the studio was about 5 blocks from our apartment, so I would often, instead of coming home from from school, I would just go to the studio and hang out and watch whatever was happening there. Do my homework in my mom's dressing room, and there were curtains and the ABC logo on in the dressing room. And I have a blog, and I've written some of these stories in it. But there was a time when Vinny Lascalzo was the Dark Shadows makeup man, and he was a sweetheart. He was a delightful man. And what? Talk into it. Okay, I'm going to hold it even closer. Somebody once said of the Go-Go's, the band, that you could always tell in Los Angeles when they were starting, because after they left the stage, the microphones would all be 4 feet tall and covered in pink lipstick. So, but okay, so when I was a kid, I would come home and go to the I'd come back from school and go to the Dark Shadows studio and hang out with my mom and be in her dressing room doing my homework and avoiding my homework, because that's more what I did. And there was a delightful makeup man named Vinny Lascalzo who did all of the day-to-day makeup for Dark Shadows. He didn't do the Barnabas aging makeup. That was actually a famous makeup man that later had a career. His name, of course, I'm not remembering now. Dick Smith, right? Dick Smith, thank you. But Vinny was a delight, and he had to be there to touch up people's makeup even as they were shooting downstairs. And one day he was bored, and he said, he looked at me, and I was just hanging out, and he said, "Get in the chair." So I got in the chair, and he made me up as a monster. And he gave me pointy Spock ears, and he gave me a long, hawkish nose, and he gave me he did my hands, he did, and then I wandered around 9th Avenue terrorizing school children. And then when I got home that night, I really didn't want to wash it off. And Mom was like, "No, you have to wash it off." I was like, "No, I can sleep in it. It won't get damaged that badly." She said, "No, you have to wash it off." I was like, "No, I can go to school tomorrow. It'll be dented." No, I washed it off. Mom could be forceful that way. And I was in the studio enough and annoying enough, I suppose, that I would watch them actually, in the control room, do the camera cues while the thing was being live taped. And obviously they got sick of me sitting there, because they actually gave me a chair in front of a bank of machines that were completely unimportant. And I could turn oscilloscopes, and there was a little monitor showing whatever it was that, one of the things. And so I would sit there happily playing with knobs and dials and oscilloscopes, and that way they kept me out of trouble and away from asking annoying questions. And we used to talk about Dark Shadows at dinner. I'm an only child of only children, so it's nice to have two. So we, Sam, my dad, would write Dark Shadows all day while Mom was acting in it. And often they would sit in our living room. Gordon Russell and Sam and Ron Sproat and the other writers would sit in our living room, coming up with story, trying to block the week, as the phrase goes, and then I would come home and watch the show if Mom wasn't, if I wasn't in the studio annoying my mother, and then at dinner we would actually talk about it, and we'd talk about ideas and what was going to happen next, and every once in a while I'd throw out something that actually in some tiny thread and needle type way might get in there, and that was great fun, so it was kind of like we lived and breathed Dark Shadows for that whole period. I was basically in 5th grade I was in a shop class in my school, and I made a coffin.
And the shop teacher actually at some point realized that this was probably not a good thing. And walked over to me and was like, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, "My mom's in Dark Shadows." He was like, "Oh, okay." You're not a psychopath. We don't really have to worry about you. Q&A. Please. I'm just going to ramble on because I have no idea how to do this. So let me quickly say, my life didn't just end there. I eventually got taller and went to college and started writing, and have written 2 novels that have been published, and more that I'm working on one right now. They don't really have anything to do with Dark Shadows. They're thrillers though, except that the cover of my first, which was Bantam paperback. When I finally saw the cover that they put on it, I thought, oh, they kind of did Mom. And you'll see it. It's over there. It's like, yeah, it was weird. So yes. Stop me before the one thing I'll say is that I was also here for the other thing I'll say is that I was also here for the filming of the Dark Shadows movies, specifically the first one. I remember that, I think I remember being in this house during the filming, or not this house, that house, and watching Dan work and doing all the things. And I remember coming up for the second one, but I think by that time I was like otherwise engaged. So that's the thing. Now, questions and answers.
Matt, let's do the Q&A after. Okay. You're welcome. That was wonderful. I heard maybe a half a dozen things that I didn't know before, and I do remember you when we were filming here. So I would love to hear from Donna McKechnie now, and I will just say that I remember when Dan Curtis said that he had seen Donna McKechnie in Promises, Promises on Broadway, and he was so taken with her that he wanted her on Dark Shadows. So we're very lucky that she's very busy. So we're very lucky that she can be with us.
Well, thank you so much. This is so exciting for me to be here because I'm always on the road or traveling or working, and this is a very special event, so thank you, Kathryn. You all have so much information about the show, so much more than I do, that I probably should ask you questions because my brain is starting to, when you think about the past, especially 60 years ago, your brain slowly opens up and things come in. Kathryn reminded me of that I was in Promises, Promises at the Schubert Theater, and this was a great, I had an audition with Dan Curtis for Dark Shadows, had no idea what that was, and I was an acting student, and I was on Broadway, but I had never really done television, except for Hullabaloo. Anybody see? Are we all the same age there? So this was serious. This was an acting role. I remember going in the office, and he couldn't have been nicer, and sitting in his desk, and we just had sides. He read, and I read the scene, Amanda Harris. It was very emotional, and because I was so determined to be an actress. Are we on? Oh, good. Okay. So I got very emotional, which was the right emotional condition for the scene. So my tears were flowing, and I thought, oh, I'm acting up a storm. He's going to love this. And actually, I don't know if I was any good, but he did hire me, probably for maybe 1 or 2 shows. And then to be on the set, that's a whole other, that experience, with David Selby. And the thing is, all of a sudden, Amanda Harris had a storyline, and it kept going and going, and I kept working and getting scripts at night and getting up at 5 a.m. and going over my dialogue so I could go to the reading, and then we get into the tech, and we put right. Am I doing the right sequence? And the marks, we get this, and we go back and get the wigs on and the clothes, and then come out and shoot, and I'd run home and get a sandwich and go to work. So that was very exciting. But all the kids, a lot, especially the little girls, 11, 12 years old, loved David Selby so much that when I became the romantic interest, right, they just wrote letters, and I think that's what made the difference for me to be able to stay on. And of course, it was just a rare experience in my life, and I had such admiration for how hard everyone worked, and because it was intense when you do that. It was live tape, which means that you would do a scene, and all of a sudden the lights would go out on this set, and the cables would go. You had to get out of the way because the cameras would go and the cables, and then lights up on the next set, and they would start. So there was no stopping, which is why people kind of love it, because it has that energy. Anyway, that was it was just a fantastic time. I did get another show, Company, and because I was kind of a Broadway baby, you know, I decided I had to do Company. I had no idea what Company was going to be. It was a very special time in my life. So Dan Curtis wrote in the script, or had, you know, probably your father's, they killed me off with an avalanche. And which is kind of dramatic when you think of it on daytime television. A lot of peat moss and styrofoam rocks, and we rehearsed it. And we had, I think it's interesting what goes on backstage with all of these things. And we did a rehearsal, and we're all in our beautiful costumes. And Dave and I'm on this shaky bridge. And maybe you remember anybody, but on the shaky bridge. And in rehearsal, they had 2 stagehands up there with a plastic tarp, and they had a couple pounds of peat moss, so that when they had the sound effect of the rumbling of the avalanche, the styrofoam rocks would come. There were few, they bounced, you know, they weren't very heavy. And they came down, and I was reaching for David, and we were like this, and the wobbly bridge and everything. And then the peat, and because it was rehearsal, they had a plastic thing over my wig. And then the peat moss came, and this rocks came, and then I collapsed, and they moved on to the next set. Lights out. And then when we filmed it, so I was ready for it. Okay, I don't know if nobody told me, but they did 5 times as much. I was just so covered in the peat moss and the rocks, and I went, oh, show business, I love you.
I think the best part of that story is when they finished, there she was, left in the dark. They moved on to another scene. There was nobody to help her get out of the peat moss, right? And say, well, that's the glory of being an actor, I guess. Anyway, I'm just going to mention one other thing before I have Marie speak, and that is that Caitlin Hawkins, and I know many of you have met her, that's Laura Parker's daughter, kindly loaned me the dress that Laura wore in those portraits for the 50th anniversary. So that is the dress, and I know you want to photograph that. And, I'd
loved Laura as you all did, as we all did, and this is a lovely way of honoring her today. And then that was the dress that Michael Hanna made for me. It's a copy of the ball gown from the ball scene from party scene from House of Dark Shadows. And he also made one for Laura Parker. I'm hoping the next time that we're here, I'll have that dress here. You remember the green ones. Anyway, I'm going to introduce Marie now to speak. And here, anyway.
Oh, thank you. It's so great to see you all. It's such fun to me to see the old, not old in age, but our fans from forever, and the original fans, and then to see so many new people. It's so wonderful. 50 years later, all of you people know us and love us, and we love you. It's just unbelievable. You know, Donna mentioned about not stopping, but it was my first soap opera, and I didn't know anything about that. And so I was doing one of the scenes very early on, and the set started falling down. And I started getting worried, and nobody said to me, "You can't stop." So I stopped right in the middle of it. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "The set is falling." He said, doesn't matter. You cannot stop when we're filming unless we stop it. And I learned my lesson very well. Anyway, it was I had such fun because I had been doing just before that some dramatic play on Broadway. And I had done small parts on television, but most of them were walking across the stage in a bathing suit or something like that. So to be able to come in, and what happened is I was doing summer stock, and they called my home, the agent, and said to him, "We want to submit Marie for a show. It's a new role on Dark Shadows. You think she'd want to do it?" He said, "Of course, yes. You know, just submit her for anything." He was like my agent, you know. Anyway, when I came back, sure enough, I had the audition. I auditioned for it. And, I have to tell you, my first character was Eve. And I was me. Oh, thank you. I love that. And she was the most evil lady who ever lived, and was built on the operating table by Dr. Hoffman and Jonathan Frid. And so they were old bones that Willie found in the back of the mausoleum. And did a very good job. And they, you know how Adam woke up and he had scars here and here, and they thought, well, we don't want to put those kind of scars on a woman, so let's put a wonderful scar at her neck. So then he worked on me for about 2 hours, about a week before the show, and they took a picture of me. I had a purple dress on, and this was purple, and they said, "You know what? It looks like a necklace, so let's forget it." They perfected it so much by then, the building of a person, that we never had any scars, and I was very happy about that. Anyway, it was it was 2 years for me, and it was a wonderful 2 years. And here we are, 50 or more years later, friends, family, fans, we all friends. It's so wonderful, and I'm so happy to be here. Thanks a lot.
Did you know that Marie was on Broadway in
8 shows?
Yes, 8 shows. Gypsy.
Gypsy was my
Gypsy with, I can't believe.
my first show with Ethel Merman.
Yeah, with Ethel Merman.
I was so thrilled when the beginning of the show, she walks down the aisle. Nobody had ever done that before. And she said, "Sing out, Louise!" And we all started to cry. I mean, it was so wonderful. Broadway. And what a
Okay, it's working. Okay. 8 shows on Broadway, and I have to say, when Donna was speaking, I honestly thought you were going to break into dance. One of the great Broadway dancers. Anyway, I'm going to just say a couple of words here about the staff at Lyndhurst. When we arrived this morning, to find that we're going to sit in these beautiful vintage chairs, to see this beautiful display, I can't thank them enough, and I love the backdrop. So all of you, Glynis and Emma and Amy and David and everybody who worked so hard to make this happen, and there's Glynis back there. It is just a beautiful. And as you walk in, we've got chandeliers and a beautiful gray carpet. You can't beat it. So we have another guest here who hasn't been at Lyndhurst before, and I'm just thrilled that Sharon can be here. So Sharon.
Hi there. In fact, the last time that I was here, we were in here, and we didn't do the Q&A in here, we did the Q&A in there, but we were in here and we were sweating to death in here too. I remember, we were on stage up here, yep. That's the time that they got me to sing London Bridge, and that's not going to happen again. If you want to see that, it's on YouTube. Yes, I have a lovely pink top on. You can't miss me with the white hair and the microphone up like this. They captured it. Thank you very much. I am Sharon Smyth-Lentz, and for those that don't know, I was little Sarah Collins, Barnabas's little boat. My memories from the time on Dark Shadows are pretty different than some of the other actors and actresses, because I also was a young person. I was 10 years old when I was on the show, and my memories are that of a 10-year-old. I didn't get to go out to dinner with the cast or have drinks or socialize. I got to be in my dressing room coloring and doing homework. But the best part was when I got to be on the sets when they were not being actively used, and I would roll up the cobwebs were made out of like this rubber stuff that they blew on with like a weed blower thing, and you know, I would go around and I figured out that if you gathered that up, you made a Super Bowl out of it. And I did that a lot. And then the blue candles, the infamous blue candles, they had all that lovely drippings down them. Well, I would pick it off. I got caught doing that, and I got reprimanded because that was an aesthetic. I mean, that was for continuity. It was supposed to look that way. Don't be picking it off. It was very dramatic. So I learned pretty quickly that there were some things that I could get away with and some things I couldn't. I was not nearly as precocious as David Hennessy was. I was a good girl. I did what I was told. I tried not to be a rule breaker. You know, you walk the line. Fine, you stay under the radar and you don't get in trouble. I used to love things like running up the steps in the foyer and opening the door, and there was stairs on the other side, metal stairs, the kind that you see in Home Depot, you know. I used to think that was so cool, stairways that went nowhere. And the sets in Dark Shadows always amazed me, because being 10 and being there, it was like Halloween all the time. Everything was make pretend. I was never scared of anything. I know that's always a question that I've asked. I wasn't scared of anything because I saw it from the other side. Everything was fake and thin walls, and as was said before, you had the cemetery here and you had the blue whale right here, and all within, like, I mean, actually the set was, or the studio was only maybe a little bit bigger than this room. And they were like right across from each other, and it was long and narrow. I thought that was pretty cool, and one of the things that I remember was the blue whale. When you're watching it in the big window that's by the front door where you come in, there's a big window here before you hit the bar, and we always see, you know, the waves, the glistening of the waves, and what do you call that? The refraction of the waves in the window. Very, very atmospheric. Well, on the other side of that, behind the scenes, there was a gentleman with like a cement mixer pan with water in it and a mirror in the bottom. And he was back there going like this. I love that. I was like, oh, let me do that, that's so cool. You know, we've come a long way, not we, but the business has come a long way in technology, obviously, in the way that they do things like sound effects and whatnot. I'm not a big fan of CGI, sorry. I kind of get off on the rudimentary stuff, you know, the cranks in the back for the creaky doors and the two wooden blocks that they slam together for certain effects. I got to witness that behind the scenes. As long as I was quiet, nobody threw me out. But one time, John Carlin and I were sitting behind a scene. I think he was supposed to go on, I wasn't. But we were sitting behind a fake wall, and he started talking to me. Now they're filming, and we're crouched down in the back, and I'm 10 years old, and I wasn't starstruck by the man because I saw him all the time. He was just a grown-up. And he started talking to me and asking me questions that I didn't quite understand in my naivete. He actually asked me, was I starstruck by all of this? I had no idea what starstruck meant. And I was like, oh no. I didn't know what he was talking about. And he asked me a couple other questions that I can't really recall right now, but bottom line is we got reprimanded. You don't talk on set. I don't care how much you whisper, you don't talk on set. And I'll tell you why. Because when people talk on set, little 10-year-old girls are newsy, and they hear it in the distance. And even though they're supposed to be engaging in conversation and not looking out that way where the fourth wall is not, that's why little Sarah had shifty eyes. Little Sarah wasn't reading the monitor. I wasn't that good. I wasn't that quick that I could catch the monitor. Now I'm much better at that. But at the time, that wasn't it. I learned my script by rote, by repetition, like a parrot. Mom would go over and over and over and over and over, and that's how I remembered my lines, when I remembered my lines. But the shifty eyes was because I was a nosy little girl. And if somebody dropped something behind the camera or somebody said something over there, I was speaking from muscle memory. I was more curious about what was going on over there. Like, oh, what happened? You know, you said about the set coming down. Well, if something banged over here, I'd like to know what was going on, you know? So that's my story about shifty eyes, and I'm sticking to it. Besides the question that I always get about were you scared, I didn't have the advantage of hearing the spooky music or knowing the entire storyline or anything like that. So it didn't apply to me. Fake cemeteries with styrofoam headstones and whatnot, and fake boulders and trees. I wasn't scared. What's the other question I always get that I just went right out of my head because I also have on-set Alzheimer's attack? Were you scared? I wasn't scared. I was never scared. There was not one time, and they set me up because they were that good at what they did. During the read-throughs and the blocking and the rehearsal, we did a scene one particular way. And that was the scene where I am stuck in the mausoleum and Jonathan shows up after he's bitten somebody and he had blood down his face. When we did that rehearsal, he just came in and I was like, oh, ornaments, Well, when they actually filmed it, was the first time that I saw the blood. And they did that very much on purpose to get a genuine response from me, and they did, because if I was maybe a couple years older, I would have went, oh shit. Yes, little Sarah cursed. A reminder, little Sarah is going to be 68 years old this year. I'm not 10. I've had a long life, many, many decades. I've been many, many people since those days. I am a much more complete and full person than I was at 10 years old. I'm not nearly as naive. But I want to say, I am constantly amazed and just filled with so much good pride that Dark Shadows had such an effect on so many people that these many years later, we can gather and reminisce and meet new friends and meet new people that feel the same way that we do about such an iconic show. Who knew? I'm blessed beyond measure to be here today and to have all of the fans that have become friends and family that are on my Facebook page that I get to engage with all the time. It goes way bigger, it mushrooms way bigger than just Dark Shadows. And for that, I am so grateful. You guys are the most loyal family. If you could choose a family with all the craziness, this is the one. We're all Colin's cousins, and I love it. And thank you.
You know, this is what I'm reminded of. My husband was in law school when I was doing Dark Shadows, so we never saw the show. But this last year, he discovered it on, I guess it's on Prime, and he started watching it from that where Maggie meets Barnabas, and then very quickly we're in another time. And I'm in the dungeon, wherever, and it had all of these scenes with little Sarah singing London Bridges and so on. I can't tell you. I have never watched those shows, but I watched about 20 of them, and you know that sequence. And I was again just so incredulous that these kids, 10 years old, David Hennessy and Sharon Smith, they never blew a line, they were never late, they were always, incredibly professional. Incredibly professional as 10 and 12-year-olds. I mean, they were amazing. It was just a pleasure to work with you. So, I have very good memories of that. So now I've mentioned David Hennessy, who was meant to be here today. And as you know, David lives in Panama, and he's quite the businessman. And he had his flight booked, he was ready to join us, and he was going to bring some of his family members, as Matt has done. And unfortunately, there were some business concerns. Well, here's what it is. Considering what is happening in our world, he had a shipment coming in from Italy, and it was stuck in customs, no surprise there. And he just had to be there, and he couldn't leave it for others. So I asked him if he would please do a little video chat. And is Danielle here? Danielle from Collinwood? No? It was Danielle who helped me do it. So we did a little 13, 14-minute chat. And you know what, Linus? We are going to show this. Let's show this when we break. And I want you to see this because he explains why he can't be here, but he's also got some wonderful memories. So, what time is it? Does anybody have
10:46. 10:46.
Ah, okay. Let's let's do some Q&A, because I know you have questions for everybody. We'll do Q&A, and then we're going to break out. So you can take photographs of us here. Isn't that a beautiful place for us to sit? We can do some photographs. And then everybody has a table here. And one thing I'm going to mention is that Matt Hall has brought his father's first draft with the markups and everything. It's a total collector's item. And so I've suggested to him that we do a bidding. So his sons will take bids, and by tomorrow night when we finish, he will know who the winner is, and we'll get in touch, and he will mail it to the winner if they're not still here. But it's take a look at it. It is the first draft of the House of Dark Shadows script.
And it's signed by my father's
And it's signed. So we'll be back. Okay, let's have a few Q&A here. Does anybody have a question? Oh, come on, Frank. What's your question?
So nice to see all these beautiful girls for the millionth time, and for the first time, this beautiful man. So my question's for you. You're in primary school. Your parents are in Dark Shadows. What was the reaction of your schoolmates that your parents were in this popular show they all watched?
Frank, that's a great question, Matt.
Well, it's interesting because I went to a pretty small school called Rudolf Steiner, if anybody knows Waldorf schools, and I hate to say it, but we were a fairly accomplished class, and I like my friends were their parents were actors. There was one kid who was a better writer. The only person in the class who was a better writer than me was this kid Paul Lyons, and his father was a fairly noted publisher. We had a couple of high-level lawyer parents, a couple of high-level doctor parents, and so it was just like, oh yeah, he's Dark Shadows, you know. It meant something, but it did not necessarily make me increase the popularity that I did not feel, because I was still kind of a nerd, and may still be actually. So it was. I mean, people kind of knew me for me because it was a pretty small class, and it elevated me a little bit with people who didn't know me, but once they knew me, they were just like, oh yeah, you know. But I kind of wanted to say that there's a subtext of Stephen Sondheim here between Gypsy and Company. I just wanted to say that weird subtextual Sondheim thing that is happening in front of you. The other thing I wanted to say is that I actually spent my childhood totally envious of you and David Hennessy, because you guys were on the show, and my parents were on the show, and everybody my parents knew were on the show, and I wasn't on the show. I was in the control room playing with an oscilloscope, and I really, secretly, it was like, I want to be on the show. They're all on the show, and I'm not on the show. But I eventually got my chance because I was on the writing team of the 1991 which is a whole other series of stories. My running line on that, fair or unfair, is that we went up against the Gulf War and lost, but they had better production values and spent more per episode. But yeah, it elevated me a little bit, but it did not make me like Mr. Popularity. It just kind of was like, oh yeah, he's got that thing, and it mystified obviously my teachers. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a good question. We have another great question. Yes, what have you got?
I was curious if when you do the opening narration, was there significance for the process? Like, was it set for script that day? Was it narrated?
I think I might be the best one to answer that one. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'll get to you. You're asking, Chris, if there was a set pattern to who's,
I'll tell you.
in the beginning it was Alexandra Malka, who narrated everything, until Dan realized that she had to be paid for her narration whether she was in the show or not. And we were on a sliding scale, right? That was it. And so from then on, whoever was not in the first scene did the narration, because that was live too. We did you ever do the narration at the beginning? The voiceover at the beginning?
Oh, yeah.
But Marie did. We had to go into the booth and record it live, and then run back into the studio. So if you were in the first scene, you couldn't do the narration. So those are the two answers. Thanks, Chris. Do you have anything? All right. Okay. Yes.
Very first episode, your early episodes, and you did the location shots, and you guys are all coming in different doors of the Griswold Inn, and it all ends up in the same spot. Was that done all at once, or did you, as the episodes progressed, you went back to Essex and Philly?
Okay. A couple of years ago, we were all in Essex in Connecticut, and if you've ever been there, many of you have, a lot of the place names, Evans and many of the place names are from there. So none of us sitting up here did that early filming. That was David Hennessy, Louis Edmonds, Alexandra, David Ford went up there to do the filming. And that was location filming that was used, for all 4 years. I can't really answer anymore, except that, when they did that filming, we hadn't started shooting we hadn't begun the episodes yet. So, coming in and out of...
Maggie, it was kind of the same.
Exactly.
I think that you go everything at the same time.
Yeah, no, it was all done before the show even started, before we started rehearsing the first episode. So that's the answer to that one. Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
It just sounds like, you can see it when you're watching the show too, but based on everything you said, all of you speaking, that it was such a high tension, sometimes high stress environment. And any of you could answer, I'm really interested to hear, but what was the one thing that was most rewarding to you about that entire process? Being a part of that whole show, the movie, what was the most valuable thing that you learned during that whole process?
Okay, Donna, you want to take that one? Okay. Sorry, watch out for the way that. She wants to know. We're working fast.
Yeah. Well, there was no time to think. And, my training as a dancer, as an actor, a singer, and that repetition means something to me, because that's how we do what we do. Memorize steps, lyrics, repetition. And when it was terrifying for me, because I need to be over-rehearsed. There was no way you could be over-rehearsed when you're doing dark shadows. And I think the good thing is that there was no time to think. You just did, and you hope that the most important thing, it wouldn't be on the stage necessarily in a play, is you've got to hit your mark. Because everyone depends on the lighting man, the cameraman, the sound, they all depend on you hitting that red mark. You have to go to it without looking at it, So all of those things were kind of exciting and thrilling, but terrifying. Does that make sense?
That's a good one.
I have a racing story.
Watch the button.
I have a quick story about my mom in terms of terrifying and gratifying. there was one episode where, and you probably all know it, where she's basically alone in the entire episode except for one scene with Nancy Barrett, Carolyn, and she's just like, as I remember, they had used up like the actor's budget for that particular sequence, and there was nobody around that she could interact with. So my father wrote this script where she was just like freaked out by things, you know, and she was alone for like 70% of the show, being freaked out by things, and she was actually like she was actually really proud of that episode, so much so that she actually ordered a kinescope, which is was basically the film version that ABC had of that particular episode, because she was really proud of the work she'd done. That she was very gratified by like the fact that it was a particularly difficult assignment to just like be alone on a set, being freaked out by noises and things moving, and she felt great about it enough that she ordered the kinescope. Anyway, that kind of helped to answer.
Questions here? Yes. Oh, way in the back. No, you.
Okay, fine. Hi. So, for the ladies, did you all have a favorite scene partner? And for Matt, did you have a favorite character that you wanted?
A favorite character and a favorite scene partner?
For the ladies, did you have a favorite scene partner? For Matt, did you have a favorite character that wasn't the right?
Okay, Marie. I'm going to give you that, and then Sharon. Don't you want to?
Okay. Each time I played a new character, I loved that character. But I must say, we could connect with Jenny. There was something about her vulnerability that I just loved. And so even though sometimes it was funny, I approached it from such a, way deep down, I could just understand her feeling of rejection and loneliness, and I guess that's my favorite character. Who was my favorite scene partner? Oh, gosh.
What about Robert?
No, Robert Rodin was wonderful, but I loved, I can't think of his name, 3 names. Humbert Allen Estrado. Oh God, first of all, he was gorgeous, I thought. And so I could react just naturally to him because I felt that way anyway towards him. So I just loved him, yeah. I wish he could be here today. Yeah.
Well, I think the obvious is my favorite character that I worked with or across from was David. We had probably the most scenes together, or I had the most scenes with him. And when I failed miserably and forgot something, he was a savior, an absolute savior. I've oftentimes said he knew everyone's lines and he had the scene down pat. So if I got off track, he was professional enough to know how to get me back on the track by giving me the word that I was looking for. So thank you to David for that. He saved me from looking like,
Oh, all right. Oh, okay. Joan Bennett. All right. I will say this. Joan was like a girlfriend right up until she died at the age of 80. I adored her, and I am now very close friends with her granddaughter, Vanessa Hope, who's a filmmaker, and she looks so much like Joan that I do a double take every time I see her. So I have wonderful memories of her, but I think we all do.
Do you remember
Yes, I admired her, I adored her. She was a very sweet lady, very professional, but I remember a lovely sense of humor. I didn't feel the tension. Maybe she loved what she was doing. That's the feeling I got. I experienced her as someone who was very happy to be there and was just a consummate professional, and it was a joy to be around. When some people have that kind of energy, such a positive, loving atmosphere around them, I think everybody has the same feeling, right?
All right, fine. I have two things about Jo Bennett. I mean, everything about her was wonderful, but I loved a scene when she and I were in a room. It was very small, and I was threatening her. I was Crazy Jenny at that time, and she was very scared, and she was running along. She had no place to go, but I kept going after her, and I said to her, "You used my green dress." And I was so mad, and I had the knife or scissors in my hand, and I wanted to kill her. I don't know how we got out of it, but we did. The other thing I remember, a lot of us were wearing clothes that were vintage, not very often, but we did. And she said to us one day, she said, if I wore those dresses, I just look like an old lady. But when you all wear it, it looks so wonderful. And she was that gracious kind of person, and that's what I love. And one other thing, sometimes people try to get out of the rehearsal before the day that we filmed. She never, ever did that. She always stayed until we finished that rehearsal. And that impressed me so much because she was such a star, from Hollywood. And that endeared me to her. Those are all the things I think of when I think of Jo.
As a little girl, I had no clue who Joan Bennett was. She was just a nice lady. However, my mother was 45 years old when she had me, so she was very much aware of who Joan Bennett was, and she instilled in me right from the get-go, that woman is a real movie star, okay? She's a glamorous movie star, and you behave yourself when you're around her. Well, I found Joan Bennett a little bit more relaxed than my mother had painted the picture, but she was the consummate professional. She was delicate. She was the kind of person that when she walked into the room, she commanded attention without commanding attention. She wasn't a diva, but she gave that, when she walked in, you turned your head and you looked, and she was always impeccably dressed. Her makeup was perfect, and she smelled good. That's what I remember.
From that as well, but I will tell you, I went up to Scarsdale once to visit Joan, and I spent the night, and around 2 o'clock in the morning, and we'd had a couple of glasses of white wine, she showed me her screen test for Scarlett O'Hara, and it was and Paulette Goddard's, and of course Vivian Leigh got the role, but it was Joan who could have really. When you see her, as I saw that screen test, I thought she should have had the role. She was wonderful. So there you go.
I just want to, I have one Joan Bennett story that relates to this very moment of our lives, which is that I actually brought the photograph. Years ago, my father was on in the studio, and he found a picture of Joan and was showing it to her, and she looked at it and she said, "Oh, I forgot I was ever a blonde." I actually have that photograph. I have brought it. You can see it. It's over there. Anyway.
I'm going to take one more question, and then I think we should regroup right over there, and you can take some photographs of us sitting posed on that. Marie, can you manage that?
Yeah, I'll get
Yeah, great. If you, yep, I'll do that. Thank you. All right, well, your question.
Yes, I recently reread Nightmare Logic, and I wondered if you had any conscious ideas about what influenced that book.
Here we go.
The question is, my first novel, Nightmare Logic. This gentleman just recently reread it, which thank you for that. And basically, the great story that my father, when I finished the first draft of Nightmare Logic, was my first novel, and Dad, of course, was a writer, I think, of substance, and at some point, like, I started that book in college, and then I finished it. I got the first draft done, and I said, like, okay, I have the first draft. I think it needs a second draft, but I'd love you to read it. And he said, I'm not going to read it. And I said, why not? And he said, because if I like it, if I say I like it, you won't believe me. And if I say I don't like it, you won't finish it. Which, true, Dad, actually. Very, very good call. So finally I did finish it, and I gave it to him. And it was unfortunately after my mother passed away in 1985. And I finished it, and I finally had the moment of presenting. And he read it, and he, like, you know, I was waiting for the big critical moment, and he sat down with me. He said, okay, if your mother was still alive and she read this, she would appear in your, like, at the door of the apartment building where you live in a stretch limo, and she would beckon you into the stretch limo, and she would take you immediately to Bellevue.
Okay, look, while we regroup over there, I'm going to invite Jim Pearson up here. Just to, Jim, you good with that? And let us know what's happening next summer. We are it's warm in here. Glennis, it's a little bit warm. Also, are my neighbors here? Heather? I saw you a little bit ago. All right. Okay, Jim, can you let us know what's happening?
Good afternoon. And of course, I don't know how many of you were here 9 years ago when we had the 50th anniversary, mostly next door at the Doubletree, which is now the Sweetmellow. Yeah. And then, of course, we've done so many things here. There's probably Guy Haynes in the room. I think it was 1984, the first bus trip up here. Yeah. You know, that Ann Wilson coordinated to get fans up here to explore the mansion. And Jonathan came up here a couple of times. And well, now next year we're at the 60th anniversary, and you know, every year there's something going on, whether it's you know, books, whether it's the audio dramas we've done over the years for Big Finish, all these lovely ladies have participated in, and with the 60th we have to celebrate with a few exciting projects. There's a graphic novel coming out shortly. There's a couple other projects with Kathryn will talk about as well. But we are also going to have a nice event in Los Angeles next summer, which will also involve some screenings. And anyway, not trying to be a tease, but we definitely have some things to look forward to as that momentous occasion happens. And the original series, a lot of you are watching on streaming, and we're going to be doing some restoration projects. And anyway, we'll talk some more this week. I just wanted to say hello to everybody, and glad you're here. Oh yeah, here's Bongos. Bongos willing to work the room.
All right, so we're just going to group here, because this is such a nice vignette, and take some pictures if you'd like, and then we're going to go to our tables, and you can meet us individually.